Hi, welcome to the Rittner Floral School in Boston, Mass. I'm Dr. Steve Rittner, and it's a pleasure to welcome you into one of our classrooms today, the time of the year around Halloween. We love the various kinds of holidays that occur throughout the year, and particularly the kinds of symbols that are involved with them. And the subject of this brief video is going to be symbols of Halloween, in particular the pumpkin symbol. And our staff here at Rittner's Floral School has been working very, very hard to provide you with all kinds of samples and cool things to look at. We hope that you enjoy this, and let's go right ahead. There are many different kinds of symbols that we have for Halloween. Many of them connected with the holiday through legend and lore. For example, if we look here, we see three little designs that are simple, fun, and they really concentrate more on witches than anything else. Here we've got one called Vampire Blood and Poison and Witch's Brew. But they've got some neat things in them like dendrobium orchids, orange carnations, a little of our leucadendron, some of our yarrow, some of our various berried materials, so that we have a very simple little combination of three containers that could be enjoyed and used. This concentrates primarily on the concept of the witch. And there are many other things that we could do along a similar vein. For example, here is a cute design for Halloween involving the witch's shoe. It's really neat. And again, it features a variety of different things. We've got things in here ranging from our orange carnations to some of our berried. We have our ilex berries. We've got some of our rose hips here. We've got some yarrow, some thistles. We have really a nice combination, some leucadendron, some of our leaves. It definitely gets in the feeling of the holiday. But out of all the different symbols of this holiday, witches' boots, witches' brews, ghosts, things like that, one of the most popular and one of my favorite out of all of them is, of course, the pumpkin. And it generally leads to the question that most people want to know, well, where did the concept of the pumpkin come from for Halloween? Because generally we think of pumpkins and Halloween, and of course we think of things like the jack-o'-lantern and carving our pumpkins to come up with these kinds of faces. Where did it come from? Well, going back historically hundreds of years ago, they would often take a turnip or maybe even a little potato and hollow it out and put a candle in it and use it as a lantern. There's this amazing story that is fictional, but it's a lot of fun, about a fellow named Jack, who wasn't a very nice guy. And Jack did not live in a very nice manner. He was worried about what was going to happen to him when he passed on. And according to the story, he outwitted the devil so that the devil couldn't take him to the devil's abode. And so when he passed on, he wasn't allowed to go to heaven. He wasn't allowed to go to the devil. And he said to the devil, "Where can I go?" And the devil throws him a coal from hell and says, "Wander." And our jack-o'-lanterns to this day symbolize Jack wandering through the world looking for a place to stay. This particular symbol of the jack-o'-lantern was especially very, very useful when folks from Europe got to the New World. And when they came over here, they discovered pumpkins. Pumpkins certainly make a much larger surface to make faces and do things on than, say, turnips or potatoes. And so in our practice here in North America, Halloween is often associated, and the jack-o'-lantern reflecting poor Jack, who is still wandering around the world to this day, in the pumpkin, or things that look like a pumpkin. And you can notice that we have many different media that we can use as far as pumpkin or jack-o'-lantern kind of designs. We can play with some of the plastic pails. The pails are generally used primarily for trick-or-treaters. And you can see it's kind of a cool one. This one's a little bit goofy. But we can have pails that have a more conventional jack-o'-lantern kind of face. And these make wonderful bases to do your designing on. And so, my viewer, if you're looking for something that you can design on to come across with the jack-o'-lantern theme, here is a good example of something like that. It is a more conventional design, a little bit more traditional in feeling. a linear piece that's kind of in the triangular shape. And you can see we have a mixture of some of our palms in holiday colors, some of our carnations, a couple of Fujis. But the concept is a jack-o'-lantern plastic pail as the base. We can get a little bit more elaborate and do other kinds of configurations in it. Here is one that's a little bit wilder, a little bit more of an open mound kind of configuration. And this one is using, oops, this fell out while we were going down and picking it up. This one is using, of course, carnations, mini carnations, some bells of Ireland, palms in yellow, palms in bronze. It's a little bit wilder. But in both cases, notice we're using the plastic pail with the pumpkin jack-o'-lantern kind of configuration. So whether you go goofy or whether you go more conventional, these plastic pails that are available to you at the holiday are certainly fun and pleasant to work with. Now, there are other things that we can also use to symbolize the jack-o'-lantern and pumpkin motif. This is not even a pumpkin. It happens to be a mug. But notice it's got the characteristic orange, and it also has the jack-o'-lantern theme in terms of the face. And we can do all kinds of cool things with this kind of thing. And here is an example. Let's bring out a couple of examples of these kinds of designs, which are kind of fun and fun to play with and do different things with. So we can come up with little mugs using this motif. And we have two examples of these right here for you to look at and enjoy. In the one at the right, we're mixing some palms, athos palms, yellow daisy palms, a little bit of our ilex berries that are really cool, some of our seasonal kinds of oak leaves together. In the one on the right, we have some dogwood. Here's the dogwood. We've got some horsetails, equisetum. We've got some rose hips, more berries, some roses, and some of our flat leaf seeded eucalyptus that's mixed together. You can come up with all kinds of cool things using these particular motifs. And in fact, I do recommend that you may want to check out our Facebook page, our Rittner Floral School Facebook page, because we have several albums that have over several hundreds of examples of different mugs using the jack-o'-lantern theme for the holiday. The concept of the jack-o'-lantern has been translated into other things as well. Here, for example, my viewer, is a neat design. This design, again, if you look at it, gets across the jack-o'-lantern theme. It happens to have that characteristic little face here. We happen to have a little LED light here at the bottom that gives the feeling of flickering. And then we have all kinds of things. We have dogwood shooting out. This is an amazing design that's really, really quite pretty. And the dogwood gives it height and really makes it much bigger. The dogwood, incidentally, and the rose hips, some of these botanicals are from our friends at Blooming of Beloit in Beloit, Wisconsin. And they really add so much to our fall designs. But we have some other things mixed here as well. We have some of our roses in here, some of our protea, leucadendron, and also some of our gerbs. Also, we have some raffia, and again, our seeded eucalyptus in here, giving a nice approach. This is not a pumpkin, but it gets across the pumpkin jack-o'-lantern kind of theme, which is great for this particular holiday. Now, there are other ways we can get across the pumpkin theme or the jack-o'-lantern theme on the holiday, and here is one of my favorites, and we love playing with these things. Here is a pumpkin. And our pumpkin in this particular case is a flower pumpkin. Yes, a flower pumpkin. And this particular design is created on a foam standing sphere. These are foam standing spheres produced by the happy people at Smithers Oasis. They're great. They come up with some really, really neat toys for us. Soak this thing, completely cover it with our orange carnations, come up with all kinds of faces and features. In this particular case, our pumpkin is looking very, very happy when the happiness is formed with some mini carnations, a little athos palm in the center, eyebrows using some of our status, a few googly eyes in styrofoam, and of course on the top we have some of our seeded eucalyptus creating a rather interesting hairdo for our little pumpkin made out of flowers. Once again, my viewer, I refer you to our Facebook page because you'll find on the Facebook page an album with tons of examples of things that use this particular great tool. So by all means, when you're coming up with pumpkins for Halloween, consider, if you will, make your own pumpkin using some of the standing spheres from the folks at Smithers Oasis. It is a great tool, and it works very, very well in this context. Now, in talking about pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns, we've examined mugs that simulate it. We've examined trick-or-treat pails that simulate a pumpkin or a jack-o'-lantern and things that you can do with it. But we should really, if we're going to talk about pumpkins, talk about the live thing. And of course, there is no reason at all why we can't also play with this motif too. And as I said, our staff has been working very, very hard, my viewer, to come up with some great ideas for you. Certainly taking an actual pumpkin, hollowing it out, putting a liner inside of it, putting a little foam in there, and then building a lovely arrangement that's appropriate for the fall, even taking the top part and adding a pick to it and picking it in on the side, and you've got a lovely design, especially appropriate for Halloween, using the natural live pumpkin. The only thing that I would suggest, my viewers, make sure if you do this that you put a container inside, so that in that way you're making sure that you get no leakage from this. Our materials, fall colors. We've got some carnations and orange, some orange roses, yellow and bronze palms. We also have a little bit of hydrangea peeking through to give us a little depth in the design, and some of our raffia. It is a very, very pretty design, and something like this would go very, very nicely in your home for this particular holiday. Now, my viewer, I'm going to show you one more design. As I said, our staff has been very, very busy coming up with all kinds of neat things to show you for this particular holiday. And if we're going to show you pumpkins, we can show you pumpkins and we can show you pumpkins, because as you're aware, pumpkins do come in many different sizes, and we can go really quite elaborate in terms of some of our pumpkin designs. This one is a medium-sized pumpkin, but look at this one. Isn't this amazing? It's absolutely incredible. A larger version of this, again, making use of all kinds of holiday materials, our roses, our carnations in oranges. We have in here some of our yellow daisy palms, some stock worked in here. We also have some protea. These are kind of wild looking, and they give an interesting effect to our design. And then, again, some of the dogwood branches that help extend the thing out. In this particular design, I think we have something very interesting going, because we're talking about symbolic motifs here, and we're concentrating in this video on the pumpkin motif. However, if you notice, this particular one also incorporates the witch. There is no reason at all why we can't combine symbols in our designing. And this is a very good example of how we can play with the pumpkin motif, but we can also play with the pumpkin motif and incorporate a little witch, or incorporate multiple symbols into our floral art for the holiday. So you can see, my viewer, we can do some pretty cool things. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. We've tried to give you a quick look at symbolic motifs associated with Halloween, in particular the pumpkin or jack-o'-lantern concept. As you can see, we can use many different things to convey the jack-o'-lantern or pumpkin. We can use plastic pails. We can use mugs that have that jack-o'-lantern feeling. We can have other containers that are not mugs, things like that tin container that had the jack-o'-lantern motif in it. And then, of course, we can even go to the natural pumpkins to use them as containers for the holiday. I hope that this brief video gave you a quick view of some of the things going on here at Rittner's Floral School. We hope that it helps spark your own creativity on this wonderful holiday. We thank you on behalf of all of us. We thank you for coming in and visiting Rittner Floral School today, and we hope you come back and view more of our videos on ways that you can use flowers to enhance your life for the various holidays and occasions throughout the year. I'm Dr. Steve Rittner. Thank you for coming in and visiting with us today.